Okay, Resident Evil 0. This one is the prequel to the original game, coming out the same year as the original's remake, and bringing in some aspects of the story to fill in the gaps and have it come full circle. I was really curious about this one because obviously there's that whole missing part of the puzzle that the first game starts with, where the previous STARS team that had gone missing, their helicopter crashed. You find some of them at the mansion when you're exploring, so sure, let's do the story about the first team. Seems obvious enough. And with the style and aesthetic mostly consistent to the original's remake, with the fixed camera angles, the haunting atmosphere, focusing more on the mood and the horror elements, and other familiar things like a mansion, zombies, and singing leech man. Okay, so most of it's familiar. I was completely on board with diving back into Resident Evil's origins and getting back into that original vibe that the first game gave me. And although Resident Evil 0 does give me that, this one also ended up being a little bit more of a mixed bag than I was expecting. The beginning of the game is excellent. The train heading through the forest that is attacked by leeches that are spreading the T-virus, all orchestrated by this weirdo up on the hilltop that I'll talk about a little bit later. The Bravo team is sent in to investigate some mysterious murders. That's where we meet our traditional two protagonists of the game, starting with Rebecca. She's a cutie patootie. She does show up briefly in the original game as part of Chris's story, but to my knowledge, this is the only one where she's a playable character. She goes in to investigate the train that was also carrying a prisoner on board named Billy Cohen, who is being sent to be executed for a crime that it will later turn out that he is being a scapegoat for. On one hand, I thought this addition was a cool idea for more variety in the cast. A lot of the main characters in the Resident Evil series are soldiers, trained cops, mercenaries, things like that, so having one of the protagonists be a criminal seemed like a really cool and interesting idea. But of course, later on, you find out that Billy was in the military and he was basically framed for the crime, so it didn't really go for the idea I thought it was going for. But they set him up like a criminal in the beginning where you meet him, and they even give him a badass arm tattoo sleeve that reminded me a lot of Seth from Dusk Till Dawn. But I really love the aesthetic of the train. Now that I've played a decent chunk of the Resident Evil games, I realize that location is so important, not just because you're going to be there for a while, but also because this is the center point of the immersion. The more unique and different it is from locations you've played before, that's all for the better. There's also just something haunting about entering a train where everybody is dead. But then, of course, they all come back to life as infected zombies, and wait, zombies on a train? That might make for a really good movie. Billy seems to be the only survivor on the train, and as it starts to move, Rebecca decides to team up with him in order for a better escape. And this causes her to be separated from the other STARS members, so she's the only one whose story we get to see. Luckily, though, she's a cutie patootie. But anyway, the similarities of the original, we do have the fixed camera angles and the pre-rendered backgrounds, which I really enjoy, and especially on the train setting that I thought was a great atmosphere. After playing Resident Evil 2 and 3, the remakes back to back, coming back to the original style of gameplay was honestly refreshing and comforting in a weird way. I know it's kind of strange to think like the more horror elements are more comforting, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a weird guy. Or maybe I just love the way that early 2000s games feel and look. But that style of gameplay giving you such an unnerving sense of suspense, wondering what could be around every corner, it's fantastic. But this game does do something significantly different with its characters that the others don't. So most of the Resident Evil games give you two main characters to play as, but they all kind of do different things with that idea. In the first game, you play as either Chris or Jill, but they basically have the same storyline, you just choose who gets to live out that storyline. In the second game, Leon and Claire have different storylines that overlap as you play one at a time. And in part 3, it's Jill and Carlos, but you swap between them as the story progresses. Here in 0, they do yet another different idea where you play as both Rebecca and Billy at the same time, literally switching between them at the click of a button and needing both of them to perform different tasks suited for them and to progress, as well as separating them at times and sending each to specific locations and even sending items back and forth to one another. And this idea was interesting. I'm not going to say that it was a bad idea because initially I kind of liked it. But that being said, I'm very glad that this is not something they would continue to inject in future installments. I think I just much prefer playing as one character at a time, and having to place each of them in specific locations and go back and forth constantly for the whole game got a little bit tedious over time. And if I do have one major criticism for the entire game, it is that word, tedious. But let me continue with the positives first. Just to reiterate, I loved the train segment. Passing between the cars, heading up towards the engine, the zombie passengers, all of that is great. There's also an added element of claustrophobia, being forced to walk in these narrow walkways. It's so great that I wish the whole game, or at least more of it, took place on the train. Another thing I liked was the cutscenes with Wesker and Dr. Birkin. It's awesome to see basically the main antagonist of Resident Evil 1 and 2 working so closely together, and shortly before all hell breaks loose. The scene of Wesker getting ready to bring the other STARS team members to the mansion soon. I really like seeing all those little story details. Rebecca and Billy never interact with them, but they are being watched on the security cameras, so it's a nice setup for the future events. The progression of the story, the unlikely allies trope, and leading into the beginning of the original were all the stuff that I really liked about this. But unfortunately, I also have a fair amount of negatives. Obviously, a big part of these games are your item slots, how much you can carry at one time and needing to find ammo and health and all that. But the others give you an item box in the save areas where you can drop stuff off if you don't need it right now. But this game says, nah, we're not going to do that, and it gives you no item box. I don't know why they decided to do this unless they assume since you're playing as 2 characters at once, you have double item slots. Instead of just 6, you have 12. But that's not really true either, since both characters have to have a weapon, both characters have to have ammo, both characters have to have health, and that already requires multiple slots minimum. And some items require 2 slots to carry, like that stupid hook shotgun, which I'll talk about here in a second. Now, the game lets you drop items wherever you want, and if you remember where you put them, you can always go back and get them, which, okay, fine, but I feel like most people would just put the items down at the slave locations anyway, so why not just have an item box there? It's just a weird omission to have, and again, I get that they were doing something different here. It's one of those things that you expect the game to have, and without it, you're constantly having to leave things behind or drop important items like healing herbs so that you can carry a key or a special item when needed. The other thing I was disappointed by were the enemies, and I don't mean the zombies. I fucking love killing zombies. Give me a Resident Evil game that has only zombies, and I would still be pretty happy. I mean all of the other enemies. Here it's just a lot of big versions of infected creatures. There's a big scorpion, there's big bugs, lots of big bugs, big centipede, big bat, and monkeys that I guess they're not big, but they're just monkeys. There's also the leech people, I guess, but it seemed like they were at a loss for bosses and just made a bunch of large insects and animals for you to fight. I get it, it's a virus that's mutating and making things large and aggressive, but it just feels a little lackluster. But there also is a moment where you fight a tyrant, but the tyrant just kind of comes out of nowhere. There's no build-up or tension like in the original, and also the boss fight's kind of easy, especially if you have the Magnum at the time, and you're just playing as Rebecca, and she takes a tyrant out by herself. I wasn't sure if later when you fight the tyrant with both characters, if that was meant to be the same one, or if that's meant to be a second one. Somebody let me know. But I guess my point is, they needed a rocket launcher to take one out in the first game, and the tyrant here just feels very underwhelming by comparison. It's not even the final boss. Actually, you know who the final boss should have been? The frog. My other negative are the locations after the train. Eventually, the train derails and crashes, but Rebecca and Billy survive. They go through some tunnels and end up inside of a mansion, but it's not the mansion from the original game. It's a completely different one, which was kind of a bummer because I wanted to see Rebecca get to and explore the Spencer Mansion where she's found in the original game. This instead is a training facility owned by the Umbrella Corporation, and it's close to the Spencer Mansion, but it's still a completely different place. It's the typical Resident Evil fare here. You explore rooms, you find pieces of items that you craft together, and then set it in a specific spot that'll open up a new pathway. It's the same old deal, and that's fine. I just don't really like these locations. The mansion isn't nearly as interesting or well laid out as the original, but it's so similar that you can't help but miss the original while you're here. When you get to the basement section, there's a moment where Rebecca falls to the floor and you have to go save her, but you can't just go in that room, so you have to run around the entire mansion again and enter in a different way, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out where this girl was. She was hanging on for dear life for a long time. The puzzles here are mostly okay. I hated the one on the train because it involves math. I just don't like math. But the worst of all of them, and I mean the absolute most frustrating and tedious puzzle I have ever seen in these games, is the one with the boxes towards the end. So Billy is the only one that can push boxes. Rebecca can take out a tyrant, but she can't push a box. Anyway, you have to push 3 boxes against the wall, but there's this gate in the middle that's blocking them, so you have to keep moving the gate in different ways as Rebecca, then you have to swap back to Billy, try to push a block around for a little bit, then switch back to Rebecca and try to move the gate again, then switch back to Billy. And if you fuck up, you have to leave the room and re-enter and reset the boxes to try all over again. It's just a pain in the ass, and the worst part is that this is pretty close to the ending of the game, and it totally ruined the momentum and flow of everything. I get puzzles and problem solving are part of the series, and I admit I'm not the smartest guy around for solving them, but this part was just ridiculous and currently holds the title for my most hated moment in any Resident Evil game I've played so far. It was even more frustrating than when I got to the church and realized, oh wait, that hook shot from the train? Well, you need it again, and there's no way to progress in the game without it. So, since I didn't take it with me, I had to backtrack all the way to the wreckage of the train in order to get it. Thank God the game kept it there for me, but once again, my biggest gripe with this game is just that it becomes tedious. But okay, let's talk about the Leech Man. So this is actually kind of a guy named James Marcus, who was a co-founder of the Umbrella Corporation along with Spencer, but who was assassinated in order to steal his research on the T-virus, which at the time he was experimenting heavily with these leeches, and the Queen Leech made its way inside of his dead body, consuming him from the inside out, and basically absorbing his mind and memories, reforming into Marcus himself. So, if I understand it right, the real Marcus is dead, but this is a Queen Leech taking on the form, mind, and memories of him. So, it's kind of like Alan Moore's backstory for Swamp Thing, if you've ever read that. Plant life forming itself and believing it to be a man. Except this is with leeches. Or maybe I didn't understand it at all. I don't know. Somebody can correct me in the comments. So the pros here are learning more about the origins of the Umbrella Corporation and who one of the founders was. That was really cool. Along with the flashback of his death and once again seeing Wesker and Birkin. The leeches spreading the T-virus explained the initial zombie outbreak in the woods. I like that, and it showed how Wesker planned to betray them and lead the second team towards the mansion to test the combat data of all the infected. For a prequel game, that's the kind of stuff that you want to see. You have 2 boss fights with the Leech Man, the area explodes, and that's that. Rebecca says that she'll inform the others that Billy is dead, so basically he gets to start a new life and goes off into the distance. And meanwhile, Rebecca begins to head towards the Spencer mansion to regroup with her team, where the first game takes place. And it's also kind of heartbreaking to think about. Rebecca goes through all of this, train zombies, giant bugs, Leech Man, just to wind up at an equally dangerous and terrifying mansion. But I can't help be bummed that we don't get to see her go there, or maybe have the final segment of the game take place there. I don't mean to sound overly negative here, because I still enjoyed my experience with the game overall. I respect the change in format to play as 2 characters at once. It's an interesting idea, and I like the idea of a prequel. It's a nice change of pace. The train location was excellent, and Rebecca is a cutie patootie. The second half of the game just didn't leave me much to be excited about, and was just kind of okay. There's some cool segments here and there, but nothing that wowed me. After playing the remakes of 2 and 3, I did really love going back to the fixed camera angle style, and I liked seeing the door animations again, believe it or not. A little more insight into the Umbrella Corporation was nice, and even if Leech Man was weird, at least it gave me a little bit more of the backstory. But unfortunately, I'd have to say, as of right now, it's my least favorite of the Resident Evil series that I've played so far. Next up, as I play my way through the Resident Evil series for the first time, it's going to depend. So, I play on PC right now using Steam, which makes getting some of the older games a bit difficult since they aren't available. But they do have the original version of Resident Evil 4, which I have played many years ago, and I'll be playing it again, along with probably playing the remake of 4 again, and do that in kind of like a double review. But I have also recently acquired a working PlayStation 2, and have ordered a copy of Code Veronica because everyone tells me I have to play this one also, which I believe takes place between 3 and 4. So depending on when it arrives, or depending on when I can get these videos done, the next review will either be of Code Veronica or Resident Evil 4. And since I'm going down this Resident Evil rabbit hole and it seems to be my current hyperfixation, I was wondering how you guys would feel if I reviewed all of the live action and animated stuff as well. I know the movies are mostly terrible, but I kind of have a guilty pleasure fun with them, and I still have yet to watch that one movie from 2021 that I completely didn't even realize existed, along with the Netflix series that also people say is terrible. But hey, it could make for some fun reviews. So you may see that stuff in the future, I don't know. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of Resident Evil 0 down below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in the middle like me? Just what do you think about it? Thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Please give the video a like and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. Subscribe if you guys want to stick around and see more. And if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I could definitely use the help right now. I got Patreon channel memberships linked below, as well as all the social media links where you can follow me. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.
Hey, that must be the old mansion that Enrico was talking about.